Imagine walking into a classroom where the teacher, instead of giving a lecture, starts talking about toilets and devils playing with poop. Sounds weird, right? But that's exactly what happened in the 1500s when a German monk named Martin Luther decided to challenge the most powerful institution in the world, the Catholic Church. His actions, which began with a few bold words on a church door, sparked a revolution that changed the face of Christianity and the world forever. In the early 1500s, the Catholic Church was like a giant, all-powerful corporation. It had its hands in everything, from politics to everyday life. One of its biggest money-making schemes was the sale of indulgences. Indulgences were like spiritual, get-out-of-jail-free cards. The church taught that if you bought an indulgence, you could reduce your time in purgatory, a place where souls went to be purified before entering heaven. The more indulgences you bought, the less time you'd spend in purgatory. It was a lucrative business, and the church used the money to build grand cathedrals and fund its activities. But not everyone was happy with this system. One of those people was Martin Luther. Luther was a monk and a professor at the University of Wittenberg in Germany. He had a deep faith, but he also had a sharp mind and a bold personality. He believed that the church's practices, especially the sale of indulgences, were corrupt and went against the true teachings of the Bible. On October 31st, 1517, Luther decided to take a stand. He wrote down 95 statements, or theses, that criticized the church's practices. He didn't just write them down, though he posted them on the door of the castle church in Wittenberg. In those days, the church door was like a community bulletin board. People would post important announcements there, and it was a way to invite others to discuss and debate the ideas. Luther's theses weren't just a list of complaints, they were a challenge. He invited other scholars to come and debate him on these issues. But little did he know, his actions would spark a revolution. Within weeks, copies of his theses were being shared across Germany and beyond. People were talking about them in the streets, in the taverns, and even in the royal courts. One of the most shocking things about Luther's theses was how he described his battles with the devil. He didn't mince words. In fact, he used very crude language to describe his spiritual struggles. He talked about the devil throwing feces at him, and him throwing it back. It was a way of showing that he wasn't afraid to confront evil, even if it meant getting dirty. But the real shock came from his challenge to the church's authority. Luther argued that the Pope, the head of the Catholic Church, didn't have the power to forgive sins or reduce time in purgatory. He said that these things could only be done through faith and good deeds, not by buying indulgences. This was a direct attack on the church, his most profitable business. The church wasn't happy. They saw Luther as a dangerous heretic, someone who was questioning the very foundations of their power, but the people loved it. They were tired of being exploited by the church. They saw Luther as a hero, someone who was standing up to the corrupt system. The news of Luther's actions spread like wildfire. In a time when communication was slow and news traveled by word of mouth, the story of the monk who challenged the church reached far and wide. People in other countries started to pay attention, and soon the entire Christian world was buzzing with debate. Luther's ideas didn't just stay in Germany. They spread to other parts of Europe, inspiring others to challenge the church's authority. In Switzerland, a man named John Calvin started a movement called Calvinism, which also emphasized the importance of faith and the Bible over the church's traditions. In England, King Henry VIII broke away from the Catholic Church to form the Church of England, partly because the Pope wouldn't grant him a divorce. The impact of Luther's actions was enormous. It led to a split in the Christian world, with the Protestant Reformation creating new churches that were different from the Catholic Church. These new churches emphasized the importance of individual faith and the authority of the Bible over the traditions of the church. But the Reformation wasn't just about religion. It also had a big impact on politics and culture. The challenge to the church's authority weakened the power of the church and the monarchy, leading to the rise of nation-states and the idea of separation of church and state. It also led to the spread of literacy and education, as people began to read the Bible for themselves and learn to think critically about the world around them. Today, we live in a world where religion, politics, and culture are much more diverse and complex than they were in Luther's time. But the legacy of the Reformation is still with us. It reminds us that sometimes challenging authority and standing up for what you believe in can lead to big changes. It also reminds us that the power of words, even when they're posted on a church door, can have a profound impact on the world. So the next time you hear about a bold idea or a controversial statement, remember Martin Luther. Remember that sometimes the most shocking and daring actions can lead to the greatest changes. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be inspired to challenge something that needs to be changed in your own world.